Alright, we're working on my Sierra 5.3 liter. A lot of posts about the updated valve covers. I put on this JLT catch can in line with the PCV valve. This is quick and simple. Best way to remove these coil packs. There's 5 10mm nuts that will come out as a full stud here. Let's see here where all the Loctite is. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the top one is 5. Just for good measure, prior to pulling this valve cover off, we're going to put some compressed air in there to get any extra dirt. Seems like a pain, but I'd rather not have dirt down in the valve cover because I was lazy. Or down in the head, I should say. Alright, we're going to remove the 4 8mm bolts. Get this off and show you what's updated on these. Alright, so here we are. We're going to remove the 8mm bolts. There's 4 of them that hold the cover, valve cover in place. Have a nice angle ratchet here. Ideally, you want to have one hand up on the head and one on the handle. At Chief Black Nip's Budget Film Productions here, we don't have a tripod to put our high-tech recording device on, so I'm holding one-handed. I'm going to go ahead and remove the extension for the back bolt. Just make it a little easier to get into it. I'll leave it angled. Again, sorry for all the camera movement here. I'm not a professional. Just another dummy in a garage. Trying to put out a video that might help you feel a little more confident about taking on this job to fix your annoying burning oil. GM said, I believe they say a quart per 3,000 miles is acceptable. Bah. Any car guy always tries to find perfection. And that's what we're gonna do. Simply doing this video to show you what it takes to do it. Alright, they're all loose. I'm going to leave them like that. As you saw, 4 8mm bolts. This is our coil pack harness plug, fancy doohickey. And now we have everything off. And we're probably going to have to pry it with a screwdriver from the years of heating up and cooling down. It's probably stuck. And it is. The truck has 178,000 miles on it. Still runs like brand spanking used. Alright, so Thank you to contributions by my father and his toolbox. And this nifty little Husky tool here. This should work pretty well. If you don't, flathead screwdriver will work. Just be careful where you're shoving the screwdriver. And keep in mind that this is aluminum, and you could, better lack of words, booger it up. I'm just gonna put this in here and give it a little pry. You might have to work a few spots. Again, this truck has almost 180,000 miles on it, so it's been through its fair share of heat up and cool down cycles. So she's being a little bit of a bear, so we might have to put the phone down and pop it off, and then I'll start the video back up. Alright, so we got the valve cover off. It was, as you can see, the valve cover seal is still stuck in some places. Just pull it off nice and easy. And there you can see GM's oh so amazing design and setup here. So if you have a lot of residue on here, don't go crazy scraping it. Remember, these are aluminum. You're going to use a steel screwdriver on there, and you're really going to be upset when your new valve springs or your new valve cover is still leaking. So we're going to take some white Scotch-Brite and just clean that all up. Just for reference here, this is the valve cover that's on it. You can see the plate. There's your little hole, breather hole for it to come up to your PCV valve over here. Now, I have a Dorman replacement. You can see the breather hole has these little, I guess you could call them baffles, to help deter extra oil spatter in there. We're going to throw that on there since we have it laying around. The updated part number is 264969. Again, this is a Dorman replacement. Just an OE replacement. Nothing exciting. No race truck stuff here. Not that cool. Again, here's your part number. But never fear, because this is probably made in Mexico. Alright, we're going to clean up the head where the valve cover seats. Just like I said, with some white Scotch-Brite. Pop this on and we'll get back with you. Alright, so here's our replacement valve cover, updated, whatever you want to call it, hippity dippity. I like to blow these out as well, because any machining process or casting might leave some excess metal residue. So just blow it out, wipe it out, and we're getting ready to put it on. Again, sorry, I'm not a professional cameraman. Just making this to try and help some other dudes out. Alright, here's a new valve cover. When you're putting this on, pay attention, make sure you don't knock the seal off of the cover. Make sure it's seated properly. Go through and get all of your bolts finger tight. You might have to wiggle the valve cover around a little bit. I found it easier to get the middle one started. This fella here, one of the middle ones, and it seemed to make it a lot easier to get everything lined up. So now we can, sound like genius. We can go ahead and take our 8mm and I'm just gonna finger tighten everything down. Get everything in place. To fit this in here, you can remove this off your brake booster. I just flip it up, pull this harness up, plenty of room. This is a super easy swap. Anybody that's half decent with hand tools should not have a problem with this at all. And then we have some interesting music on the radio. Alright. Everything's hand tight. Now, I recommend you figure out what the torque specs are on these. They're small bolts, so I'm sure they'll break easy, but we also don't want them so loose that we just wasted our time changing the cover and gasket. Recommend finding the torque specs for these. They're probably in inch-pounds. If you're not that good with feeling how tight things are, definitely look up the torque specs. I'm gonna go with the Russian version of that, the old good and tight. I'm not recommending you do that unless you are experienced / good with your hands. We're gonna tighten all this down, and I'm gonna show you bolting the coil pack back on. So when putting these in, I thought I should give you a little piece of insight too. I don't know if it's recommended in the service manual. I just feel better doing it this way, almost like tightening your lugs. I'll get the center two snug and go out to the outer ones, snug them, and then I'll go back to the inners. Simply just trying to make sure I'm evenly compressing this down. I really don't know that it matters, but for my simple-minded pleasures, I rather do it this way just to make sure. Again, I'm not a professional. I'm just another dummy trying to help out anybody working on their good old Chevy, GMC, whichever one you may have. Alright, so we got everything good and snugged up. We're going to grab the coil pack and put that baddie on. The coil packs, I should say. Alright, we'll be back. Alright, everything's on tight. Now we're going to go ahead and put our coil pack, this whole unit back on. Sorry, I had to readjust my high-tech step stool here. do this with one hand. You guys will have two. So, because you're not holding the phone, it's kind of a pain in the butt with one hand, but we're going to make it work. There we go. Set it up on there. We'll take our studs. I'm going to just put the center one in, finger tight, just to hold it from moving anywhere else. There's 5 of them in total. And they're all pretty darn easy to get to. Thank you, Mr. Chevy. Or Mrs. Chevy. I believe the CEO's a woman, so I better give her props. This 5.3 is one of the good ones. Everything's snug down. Now what I'm going to do is put a little bit of dielectric grease in here. Just again, redundancy. It can't hurt if you got it laying around. Goop that up in there. Helps keep any moisture or corrosion out. Yes, I know the engine gets hot, and that'll dry it out. I also put them in my plug wires, just good measure. All right, we're going to get the dielectric grease, tighten down my 10mm studs, plug our JLT catch can back onto the new valve cover. Simple swap, guys, really is. The rock, we're gonna put some Permatex dielectric grease. It doesn't have to be perfect, it's just a little added insurance. I just put a bead in there. There's no scientific method to this. I'm not that intelligent, trust me. And then we just plug her back in. So it clicks, then we take our little safety lock, and we just push it right back through. And we check all of our other wiring. Again, these little tabs go on the studs that we removed. And just take your time, make sure you don't skip anything. There's one there. There's one down here as well. So 3 points of contact there. When you're bolting this valve cover down, make sure none of your injector harnesses end up under the valve cover. Just pay attention to what you're doing. It's extremely easy to do. All right, so then we're gonna take our nifty GM quick release here. I'm just going to slide it down and on there. Let me fix the light here so we can see what's going on. You take this in, put it right on there. Any of you have kids, you should have no problem finding that hole. I would hope. Alright, we're going to hook up the spark plug wires. We're going to put a little grease in them, dielectric grease, and pop them back on and see where we're at. Then I'm going to go through and see how much oil my catch can here holds after 1,000 miles, and then we'll check it again after 3,000 when I go to change it, and we'll see if it burned any, if we just had a bunch of overflow. Again, this is an updated Dorman one. It has a different baffle plate on it. It's not just open. So we'll see. See if it makes any difference. And we'll get back to you on that. Just a little side note, when pushing your spark plug boots back on, make sure you feel it click. If you have to twist it a little to help you push it up on there, make sure you feel the click so you know you're securely on the coil. Like I said, I also put dielectric grease, just a little glob in there, just for added measure. Alright, let's run this thing for 1,000 miles and we'll get back with you. Alright, everything is on with the exception of the engine cover. Now our hose back in place. This is our JLT overflow. We're just going to fire this hot rod up. And, well, she still runs, so that's a good thing. I don't hear any craziness going on. Everything appears to be A-OK. Educational video, if you may, for your valve cover swap to the upgraded GCV baffle. I've had this truck for quite a few years. I've done quite a few things to this truck. If you have any questions pertaining to this body style GMC Chevy Silverado, feel free to subscribe, like, send me your questions. I've done quite a bit of stuff to this truck as far as replacing parts and maintenance and do's and don'ts with these things. I haven't had a whole lot of chance to work on my 2019 Trail Boss because that sits and has no miles. As you all know, my 2021 Duramax needed quite a bit of work right from the dealership. If you want to find out about that, subscribe, check out my other videos.